Transformations practice. All right, number 1, describe the transformation rule. When you're looking at these are not sequences. This is just one thing being done to it. You need to look and see what's happening to this image. First, identify your original. And the one without prime notation is the original. Prime notation is this little teeny tiny apostrophe that's beside the letter. That tells you that that's your new image. Second, see if they're similar or congruent. If they're the same size, then you know it can't be dilation. If they're not the same size, then look and see, okay, is this a reflection? Is it flipping across something? Is this a translation? Is it just sliding across the coordinate plane? Or is this a rotation? Is it turning in a direction? Well, you can look and see that this triangle is pointing to the right, but here it's pointing down. Since it's pointing in a different direction, that's not just the opposite. This is definitely going to be a rotation. So we're going from the first quadrant to the fourth quadrant, which is clockwise. Let's check our points. B is 5, 2. B prime is 2, negative 5. When you flip numbers and you change the sign of the second number, that is a rotation of 90 degrees clockwise. You're rotating 90 degrees clockwise. All right, look at number 2. The two triangles fall on opposite sides of the y-axis. Angle B is pointing to the right for the original. Angle B prime is pointing to the left for the new one. So it looks like this is flipping across the y-axis. A is at 1, 4. A prime is at negative 1, 4. My numbers did not flip, so it's not a 90-degree rotation. Both numbers did not change signs, so it's not 180 degrees. The x changed, so if the x is the only thing that we changed the sign of and we left the y alone, then that's a reflection across the y-axis. When you leave the y alone, you're reflecting across the y-axis. All right, look at number 3. The more you look at these, the easier it will be for you to identify what's going on. All right, so we have A at the top, B to the right, C at the bottom for our original. A at the top, B to the right, C at the bottom for the new one. That tells me it's not rotating and it's not reflecting. They are congruent images, so it's not a dilation. So I know this has to be a translation because they're pointing in the same direction. So I am going to go from C to C prime. First I go to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until I'm in line with C prime. So translate x plus 5. Then, once I go over 5, I have to go down to get to this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The translation rule is x plus 5, y minus 6, because we shifted this image to the right 5 and down 6. Each point went to the right 5 and down 6 to its corresponding point. All right, number 4. These are definitely similar and not congruent, so I know this is going to be a dilation. 5, 1 is my coordinate for B. 10, 2 is my coordinate for B prime. And I have to say, what am I multiplying this coordinate by to get to this point? So I take my new x, divide by my old x, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. So this is a dilation of 2. All right, number 5 and 6. Again, we did the same thing. We're looking to describe the translation, the transformation rule to see if it's a translation, what's going on here. All right, my point, C, is at negative 2, negative 2. For my C prime. My original, the one without the prime notation, is at 2, 2. I see that both signs have changed, but because I have the same number, I don't know if anything flipped or not, so I need to try another point. B is at 5, 1. B prime is at negative 5, negative 1. My numbers have not flipped, so this is not a 90-degree rotation. But both coordinates, the x and the y, took the opposite sign, and when both of them take the opposite sign, that's 180 degrees rotation. And remember, with 180 degrees, it doesn't matter if it's clockwise or counterclockwise, it's going to put you in the same location, so you can leave it at 180 degrees rotation. Number 6. It looks like these two images are the opposite of each other. It looks like they're flipping across the axis that goes in between them, which is the x-axis. B is one above the x-axis. B prime is one below the x-axis. C is 2 above the x-axis. C prime is 2 below the x-axis. And A is 5 above the x-axis. A prime is 5 below the x-axis. So this is definitely our y is the only thing that's changing. We're just taking the opposite of it. So this is a reflection across the x-axis, because that's the axis that comes in between these two images. All right. 7 tells us to rotate the figure 90 degrees clockwise. When we rotate 90 degrees clockwise, our y becomes our x, and our x becomes our y, and we change the sign of that second number. We flip our numbers and change the sign. So if A is at negative 2, 4, then A prime, we're going to flip those two numbers and change the sign of the second number. So negative 2 becomes positive 2. To the right, 4, up 2. B is at 1, 2. We're going to flip those, negative 1, 2. Flip those 2, and then negative 1 becomes a positive 1. If you clockwise, you flip your numbers, change the sign of the new second number. And then C is at negative 3, positive 1. So again, you flip those numbers, change the sign of the new second number. And that's your new image. For number 8, reflect the figure across the y-axis. So B is negative 1, 2. To flip across the y-axis, we're going to take the opposite of the x-coordinate. That's going to become 1, 2. A is negative 2, 4. When we flip across the y-axis, we change the x-coordinate, because it has to go on the other side, so it's going to go to the right to be graphed instead of going to the left. So that's positive 2, positive 4. C is at negative 3, 1. When we reflect across the y-axis, we change the sign of the x-coordinate. And that's our new image. Number 9 says to translate, so we're just going to move this 4 units to the right, 3 units down. Each point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And if you want to do this mathematically, B is at negative 1, 2. So we plug in the x for the x in the rule and the y for the y in the rule. X plus 4, y minus 3. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. And when we go from our original point to the right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 3, 1, 2, 3, this is at the same spot. So you can do it mathematically, or you can just slide it over. From C, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 3. And that's our new image. All right, for number 10, rotate 180 degrees. Don't flip your numbers, just change the sign of both numbers. So negative 2, 4 becomes positive 2, -4. -1, 2 becomes +1, -2. -3, 1 becomes +3, -1. And that's your new image. All right, let's look at a few more. We're going to dilate number 11 with a scale factor of 1/2. So A is at 2, -2. We multiply both of these numbers by the scale factor. -2 times 1/2 is -1. 2 times 1/2 is 1. Sorry, that's +2, -2. I got those two backwards. I apologize. So that's 2, -2. It's okay to make mistakes. We go to 1, -1 and label it. B is at 4, -2. With a scale factor of 1/2, 4 times 1/2 is 2. -2 times 1/2 is -1. For C, we're at 2, -6. 2 times 1/2 is 1. -6 times 1/2 is -3. So 1, -3. That's our new image. All right, one more thing that I want to talk about is sequencing of transformations. So find the sequence of the transformation that takes triangle EFG to HIJ. So if E is coming first, then H is the same thing as E prime. Like we're going from this image to this image. So E and H are both labeled as being the first ones, so those are corresponding angles. F and I are corresponding angles because those fall in the middle. And then G and J are the last angles mentioned, so those are also corresponding angles. So we want to see what's happening. J is on this side, the left side, and its corresponding angle is more on the right side. So first we determine, are they congruent or similar? And we see that they're the same size, so we know that these are congruent, which means there's no dilation. In order to get this image from facing this way to facing this way, there's going to have to be a reflection. There's no turning involved here. So when we reflect over the y-axis, that's our first step. And this is kind of trial and error. You try something first, see if you can get a second step. If you can't, then you start over. So we're going from our original to over here. So E prime, or H, is what we're calling our new image. It's going to be here. G is right here. And F is right here. And now we want to get this new image. We forget about this one. We're done with that because we've done our first step. To get this image to come down here, it's just going to be a slide, which is a translation. So to get from J to J, we're going to the left 2 places until we're aligned with it. So we translate x minus 2, and then we're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, y minus 4. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to reflect across the y-axis, and then we're going to go to the left 2 and down 4, and it puts us on corresponding angles. So when you have transformations and you're trying to figure out the sequences to the transformation, just kind of try something first. If it doesn't work, try something else. But look at the characteristics of the angles and see if that will help you figure out if there's a flip, so a reflection. If there's a turn, a dilation, if it's just sliding over, try to figure out if those characteristics can help you solve which sequence you need to start with.